what's up YouTube? Today's video we are going to go over another top DPS profile. So every morning most people tend to check the news. I go on PoE Ninja and look for new profiles to make a video about. And what do we have here? 1337 life, 1337 ES, 69 billion or 6.9 billion DPS, and the most Gigachad skill of them all, Dual Strike. So we're going to see how exactly he gets this amount of damage and what he actually does to do all of this, because this profile is pretty nuts. Now, I am showcasing a video right here, and this is an Armour Aura Stacker, if you don't already know. But right here, the person is using Smite. Now, usually, wait, what is this? Countdown thing. I don't even know what that is. But basically, that's pretty interesting. I don't really know what that is. Is that like a weak aura overlay that pops up if you press the button? Not too sure. I do know that there is some stuff that can actually do that, and it just overlays something on top of your screen, and it is not against TOS, but that does seem pretty useful in terms of, I think it's for his Grace March of the Legion or something, or his Divine Blessing, I mean, not March of the Legion. But basically, this is how the build works. This is an Armour Aura Stacker. It is pretty crazy. The damage scaling is off the charts. We're going to go see why it does so much damage and how he actually achieves this amount of life and energy shield while also reaching 6.9 billion DPS. So first off, some background. Now, if you go look at PoE Ninja profiles and you try to look for the top DPS profiles for a long time, you'll notice that's always the same skills. And in the past, Armour Aura Stacker has always been the highest. It gets absurd numbers of, I think I've seen upwards of 12 billion DPS on Lightning Strike. Now, before the profile, you used to be able to cheat a lot more. Nowadays, PoE Ninja has really stopped the amount of cheating. So when I import this profile over, you will see that he is using all Megalomaniacs, but the Megalomaniacs don't have all of the nodes taken. You can see here now that Imbalanced Guard no longer affects it. It doesn't let you have double armor, and it doesn't increase the damage of Dual Strike. And lastly, Supreme Ego no longer works, so you can't have 40% more aura effect for all of your auras when you have this allocated. So props to PoE Ninja or GGG for fixing up how it actually parses people's builds, because nowadays it's a lot more accurate and the cheating is definitely somewhat kept in check. So I'm not really sure who is responsible for that, but there's no longer infinite passive points. I'm not sure if you can do infinite Watcher's Eye, but Supreme Ego and Imbalanced Guards no longer work. And like I said, PoE Ninja now knows how you allocate your cluster jewels. So if you look at the Megalomaniacs, in the past, every single one of these would have been allocated, but now you can see only 2 of them are allocated at a time. Now, the build does use Replica Dream Fetters, and Replica Dream Fetter is where the magic happens, as you can see. Replica Dream Fetter grants you 1% attack damage per 450 armor, so it is the attack damage version of Nebulous pretty much, but it's actually much better than Nebulous because it gives you near infinite amounts of damage, as we'll see later on. And this profile does have around 2.5 million armor, and with 2.5 million armor, it comes out to roughly around 10 to 11,000 increased damage. Now, where do you get all of the base damage to scale up from? Well, it comes from your auras in terms of Smite, which grants you lightning damage when you hit an enemy. So you can see here, without Smite, it goes down to 3.4 mil. And the lightning damage aura Wrath gives you a huge amount of damage. If you take off this, it goes all the way down to 221k. And we can kind of see this if we go look at calcs. It's always interesting when you want to figure out how a build actually do so much damage. PoE Path of Building literally breaks it down all for you. So you can see here, the amount of minimum damage is 219 and then 3,976. And you can see here it comes from Wrath and Smite. And all of this gets multiplied by 11,000% from the 2 Replica Dream Fetters. So that's how that small amount of damage becomes 6.9 billion DPS. Now, you might be wondering, why is this guy using Dual Strike? Because isn't Lightning Strike better? Well, Dual Strike is actually kind of interesting. You're able to use this because you dual wield these swords. It has an incredibly high base damage effectiveness. You can see here, it actually goes up to 263.5%. And most importantly, its alternate quality also grants more damage with Phantasmal quality, which gets amplified by Ashes of the Star. So he's using Ashes of the Star. He has 30% quality on skill gems. And you can see here, Dual Strike gives you Phantasmal. It grants you 10% more added damage. So with all of that, it's 25% more added damage. which is almost like a damage link in the skill. In addition, it also gives you 116% increased critical strike chance, and since this profile is not 100% crit, you can see that this increased critical strike chance is actually pretty important. And it does have 70% of base attack speed, but since you're dual wield, it kind of cancels out. So this skill just ends up being more damage than Lightning Strike, since Lightning Strike doesn't count both the attack and the projectile component. So for Path of Buildings purposes, it will end up being more damage than Lightning Strike. So you might be wondering why the damage is actually so high. So like we said in the beginning, you have insane base damage scaling with all of the base damage from Wrath and Smite. And then you multiply it by 11,000% with the armor value of 2.5 million or 2.45 million. So you might be wondering, how exactly do you get so much armor? And all of the magic comes from all the auras you have. So first you have Iron Reflexes, which converts all your evasion rating to armor. So you take off Grace, it's already down to, let's see, the armor, 330k. You take off Defiance Banner, it's all the way down to 172k. And then you remove Determination, and you get down to a Pedestrian, 38,000, which is pretty normal for most builds. So let's see, let's turn on all of this again, and then we have Determination turned on. So now we're back at, we need to turn on Grace again. So you can see here how multiplicative it is scaling, in that once you turn off everything, you lose a bunch of armor. So let's turn on that. So actually, I think we messed it up somehow. But Grace Determination, I'm not really sure why this happens, as I was doing this earlier and it actually messes it up. But let's go back, Control Z. So basically, all of the armor scaling comes from Grace Determination, Defiance Banner. So how do you actually scale those auras? Is you get an insane amount of aura effectiveness. So you can see here, Introspection gives you 10% aura effect, 10% aura effect, 10%. So every single one of these Megalomaniacs have Introspection on them. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's already 120% aura effect. And then we look at Determination on here, or Grace. He has 262% aura effectiveness. And then it also gets added up with the 120%. So you can see here, he probably has around like 400% aura effectiveness on Grace and Determination, which leads to this crazy armor value. Now, next up, he's able to scale his damage also by using the second notable on Megalomaniac, which you may notice is actually called Ancestral Guidance. And what Ancestral Guidance does is it gets you increased effective buffs for your ancestor totems. And then he also has Panopticon, which gives you 50% increased effect of buffs of your ancestor totems. Now, Ancestral Warchief and Ancestral Protector are both damage multipliers. So you can see here, Ancestral Protector gives you 21% more attack speed, and then Ancestral Warchief gives you 20% more melee damage. So if you actually turn off these two totems, you will see that his damage goes all the way down to 1.25 billion, which is still a lot of damage. But you can definitely see here how much each one of these totems actually gives him in terms of damage. So absolutely crazy amounts of damage being provided by the totem. And you can see here, Ancestral Protector Totem, if you turn it off, his attacks per second goes from 21.44 all the way down to 7.48. So he is stacking 12 Ancestral, or he actually has Iron Breaker here. I'm not really sure why. Oh wait, it's because I clicked it. So he's stacking 1, 2, 3, 12 Ancestral Guidances, and then he also has Panopticon and stuff like that. So that's why his damage is so insanely high, because he's making a more effect on more damage multipliers with Ancestral Warchief and Protector. And after you have all of that attack speed, you have all of that base damage scaling. Next up, you're 100% crit. You need to worry about your crit multi, and his crit multi pretty much just comes down to using the crit damage gem here. So it's increased crit damage. He does have Disemboweling on the tree, which is pretty point efficient, 25% multi, 10%, 10%. And then right here is another 25% multi against unique enemies. And then, furthermore, if you look into it, he also has a String of Servitude, which grants him 72% multi along with 60% Grace Aura effect. So this belt serves a lot of purposes. And lastly, you might be wondering, how does he do penetration? Because all of his damage is literally lightning damage. Well, his penetration comes from his chest Doriani's prototype, and he is using Thread of Hopes. And the reason you want to use Thread of Hopes is because you lower your max res or your elemental resistances. So you can see here, he has 1, 2, 3 Thread of Hopes, and he's actually using this to get leadership for more aura effectiveness. He gets Panopticon right here for more Totem, and then right here, I think he's just using a Thread of Hope to use a Thread of Hope. So basically, with these 3 Thread of Hopes, he's around negative 183% lighting res, which allows him to have the enemies nearby having negative 183% lighting res. You see, you take off this chest right here, he goes all the way down to 1.7 billion DPS, which is still, of course, a lot. Now, for his gear, his Ancestral Protector Totem, he has the buff effect on here, and this is another increased effect of non-curse auras. And he also uses Aspect of the Spider. I think Aspect of the Spider might give him some extra damage. So see here, Spider Web stacks. If you take those off, it's a decent chunk of damage. Shaper's Touch is going to give it increased evasion rating per 10 hit. And I'm not really sure how good this is, but this probably is just the best gloves that he could use. March of the Legion, he does this to put the Grace and Determination in, I'm pretty sure. So what's in his boots? The boots has the Grace in it and Smite, so this is because you get +5 level of your aura gems, and then you get +3. There's +8 level of your auras, and you have it in Divine Blessing. Ashes of the Stars used with Fatal Blade for more multi, I'm pretty sure. So Fatal Blade is another crit multi-node anointment. So overall, you can see here, he's using Ming's Heart, which actually gives him Hatred for free without using a gem link, because PoE Ninja will always take the aura implicit and make it so that you have it on. Now, the interesting thing about these rings is that these rings are good, but I'm wondering if he's actually using these rings in order to lower his life to 1337, which would be a pretty cool thing if he actually needed to do that just to lower his life and energy shield values to 1337. But next up, he's using Bottle of Faith. As usual, if someone's cheating, they're going to use 70% increased effective flash, and he does this to probably get his crit chance. Because without this flash, he's unable to get to 100% crit. Now, something interesting to know is you might be wondering, why is he not using a Granite Flash or Jade Flash? Or he is using a Jade Flash but he's not using a Granite Flash because I'm pretty sure he has so much armor that a Granite Flash would not really be that useful at all. But he's using a Basalt Flash because Basalt Flash actually grants you more armor. And like usual, he's using 1 passive voices to save on passive points. And lastly, in terms of his Watcher side, it is a 2-mana Watcher side with Hatred crit. And it's important because he doesn't really have 100% crit easily. And then he has Wrath Lightning Pen, which gives him 15% Lightning Pen. And this is important because, as you can see here, this damage is exclusively all lightning damage. So that's how he gets his damage to be so high. Just a combination of factors between crit multi, attack speed scaling, totem scaling, and the chest elemental penetration with Doriani's prototype. So now comes a $1 million question, which is, how much is this person actually cheating? And the answer is, it's not that much cheating, but it is a lot of cheating in the sense that his mana reservation is completely screwed. He's at negative 105% mana, and that's pretty much because of the boots with March of the Legion and how I think he's actually running too many auras. But let's see, and this is actually even more cheating because the March of the Legion auras don't even get counted in terms of the mana reservation. So if you disable both of these, he's still at negative 105%. So yeah, the build doesn't really function at this amount of mana reservation efficiency, but in terms of the passive points, it is completely correct. There's no imbalanced guard cheating. There's no supreme ego cheating this time around. And it's actually astonishing that the damage can still be so high. Now, you might be wondering, should I play this build or can I play this build? If you actually look at the person's profile name, it is fake build, don't copy. So that should give you a pretty big thumb or heads up on why you should not actually copy this character. Now, like I said, it is crazy that the damage can still be like this with the correct amount of passive points. I didn't really think it was possible. But yeah, when you have 1 passive voices and you buy every single Megalomaniac and with introspection and ancestral guidance, I guess the sky is the limit, right? But PoE Ninja could actually be pretty good for people judging how viable a build could actually be if they just disable the mana reservation. So if your reservation is negative on PoB, then it will disable all your auras. But that's probably something that's too crazy to do. But I'm actually really surprised that they actually changed up the passive tree or the passive point allocation for cluster jewels. and they actually made notes like Imbalanced Guard and Supreme Ego not really work for this build. Now, Armour Aura Stacker is one of the tankiest builds when it's actually built correctly. You can pretty much AFK and base tank everything in Simulacrum. And actually looking at this profile, it makes me long for the days that people used to play, what's it called, Dual Strike. I'm not really sure if there's actually any Dual Strike footage, but if I remember, people used to play Dual Strike Bringer of Rain back in the day. Let's go see here. I'm actually going to pull up a video. And this is all the way back from 2015, some nostalgia. Bringer of Rain Dual Strike. Look at this. Soul Taker, one of the most expensive items in the game. And just look at this amazing clear. This could be us in the future if Dual Strike or other strike skills are one day buffed to become the best skills in the game. Man, this PoE looks very slow paced actually. But thanks for watching, everyone. Maybe one day we'll be dual striking together, but after seeing this, maybe I don't want to be dual striking. But thanks for watching. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Bloods than me. And yeah, 6.9 billion DPS. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.